Today we'll be assembling an 1800 series Beavertail boat blind, which is the same process as our 1400, our 1600, and our 2200 series Beavertail boat blinds. First of all, before we assemble our boat blind today, we're going to go through each one of the components and explain what they are. Starting with our main support brackets. Our 24-inch rubber dipped ends, which fit into the support brackets. 2 pivot brackets, 8 total L brackets, elbows, that we use. On the 1800 series and the 2200 series boat blinds, we have 4 that are elongated, a little bit longer, for larger width boats, being 18 to 20 feet. Now, with our 1400 and our 1600 series boat blinds, all 8 elbows will be the same. And I will explain later on where these particular ones go. We have our 8 center support pulls and 4 center support pull ends. And I'll come over here, and we have our 1800 series Shattergrass fabric and our 1800 series ripstop nylon cover sandwiched between 2 vinyls with straps. And rounding this off is our 2 travel straps, which a lot of our customers can either mount with this attachable screw, the center support bracket, or just strap their blind in place when traveling long distances. I lay out my hardware individually so I make sure that all my bolts have nuts. All my washers are in place, and my screws and other hardware are here. With every boat blind, you will have 32 1/4-inch bolts with 32 1/4-inch nylock nuts, 12 3/8 by 2-inch bolt, and 12 3/8 nylock nuts, and 16 plastic washers. You will also have 8 end caps, 4 self-tapping 2.5-inch screws, 2 nylon travel straps, and 4 lockdown handles. First of all, I start by pairing up my 3 sets of support bars. In each 3 sets, you will have 2 support bars that have a male and a female end, and 1 support bar that has 2 female ends. And what we will do is we take the support bars, because you want to end up on both outer ends with a female end. So we slide those together. All the holes are pre-drilled, so there's no drilling required with our boat blinds. Once you line your holes up, that's when you will take your 1/4-inch screw or your 1/4-inch bolt and put 2 here and 2 there, and repeat the process as I show you. Now that I've assembled the center support tubes in 3 pieces, all 4 of them, I'll have you unpack your Beavertail canvas and lay it on the table inside out. By turning the blind inside out, you will find 4 individual support pull pockets. And what we will do is insert the main support pull into the pocket. And slide it in. Repeat this step. Now this is where we make the determination of these will be your 2 outside support pulls and your 2 center support pulls. This is where, when you go back to your pile of brackets, you will use 2 elongated L brackets two center L brackets. Center L brackets, which are the shorter L brackets, will go to the center, and the larger L brackets will go to the two outer sides. To install the L bracket, it's the same process as installing the support tube. Slide the male into the female end, use your 1/4 inch bolts and nylock nut, and repeat the process 3 more times. As you can see, we've assembled our corner brackets to our center support poles. As you can see, there's 2 longer L brackets on the outside for the 1800 series and the 2200 series boat line, and 2 of the shorter L brackets for the center. What you'll do to finish this part of the process is slide the rest of the tube up to the corner of the L bracket, and then you will repeat the assembly process on the opposite side of the blind, just as you did on this end. Also, when installing a 1400 series and a 1600 series boat blind, all 8 L brackets, or corner supports, will be identical, same length. So you will not have to alternate. So now, what we're going to work on is our main support beams and our pivot brackets. Now I will install a center beam into the pivot bracket. And at this point, it's not crucial to center it right at this moment. But what is crucial is what side you want your clamps, which adjust and lock down your boat blind to the boat, to the gunnels. What side you want these to be on? You want them facing inside or outside? That'll be up to you. I particularly like to face them to the inside. Less stuff can grab them, and I can also adjust it while I'm in the boat blind itself. Do the same thing on the opposite main support beam. And then what I will install my 4 rubber dipped clamp ends and my 4 clamp bolts and repeat the process. Next, what I will do is I will bring these items fully assembled to the boat and center my pivot bracket to the center of the boat so we ensure that the boat blind will fall correctly and deploy correctly. Now that we put our cross members on our boat, what I'll have you do is to center the main support bar, I will measure to see I have a proper distance or the same distance on this side as I do that side. And I will do the same thing in the rear. Once I determine that I have the main support beam centered, I will lock down my bolts, and then I will center my pivot bracket. So what I'll do now is I'll center our pivot bracket by tapping it with a hammer in either direction to ensure that I have a uniform distance between here and here. Tap up on the bracket to seat it, and then our next step will add our 2" 3/8 bolts to the bottom to lock our pivot bracket in place. We'll also repeat the step on the rear bracket. When determining the front from the back on the Beavertail boat blind canvas, our canvases are constructed where we have 3 loops in the front, cutouts, be it for a swamp light package or side lights like some other boat manufacturers have. And the rear of our boat has just a tapered edge and is straight across. So when you bring your frame to attach to the crossmember and pivot brackets, you'll note that this is the rear of the blind and the opposite is the front. Once you've determined the front from the back on your boat blind, take your left side outer longer tube for your 1800 series boat blind and slide it into the pivot cradle. And what we're going to do is we're going to utilize our 3/8 bolts and our nylon washers. And what we do there is take your pole, drill out a hole in the center, pop your 3/8 bolt through, the nylon washer will go on the inside. And this can be a little tricky. One extra tool you may want to use when doing this procedure is a long, skinny standard screwdriver. Because if they fall down below, you can fish them out. So what I do is I slide the bolt through the hole on the elbow tube. I grab my other nylon washer and I put it on the back side, the inside of the pivot bracket. Pop it through. Put my nylon nut on the back. Don't tighten it down at this point. When towards the end of this segment, I'll tell you why we're not going to tighten them all the way down. Continue the process in the rear, and then what you'll do is you'll take your next row or your next support beam, which will be one of your centers. That will go here. The right center will go here, and the opposite long support tube will go here. And as you notice, I have it collapsed down to the left side of the boat. Being this end open, it'll fold to the left. If I had this bracket switched around, it would fold to the right. Now that I have all these attached, and yet we have not tightened down these bolts yet at this time. What I want you to do is take and fold over your boat blind. I'll run around the back and do this. And every boat is different, and we manufacture a universal boat blind. So flip your boat blind over. And now's the time where you want to measure and make sure that your measurements early on in the assembly process were accurate. So what I recommend doing is starting in the rear, and because we're up front, I'll show you what I'm talking about, is I'll take a measurement from the gunnel to the outside of this bar, okay? And right here I have a 9-inch overhang. Now, if this is a 1750 boat, if this was an 1860, I'd have about 2 inches of overhang, and I'll cover the overhang in a minute. But I have 9 inches here, and I also want to have 9 inches on the other side of the boat. And I do. If you do not, what you'll do is you'll loosen up your clamp brackets here. You loosen those up, and you'll take up the difference by adjusting left or right on the center support bracket to make sure your both measurements come out the same. Now, with this overhang that we have is 9 inches. Now, if you have a similar situation that we have here, what I would have you do is disconnect this bolt, and that's why we didn't tighten them. Measure 8.5 inches up, cut the bar, drill a new 3/8 hole a 1/2 inch above your cut line, and put the bolt back in place. What that will do is that will shore up the edge of your boat blind so it rides right on the gunnel of your boat. It won't create as much as you might think of slack in your fabric. Later I will show you a boat blind that we've already done that to, and the amount of slack is very minimal. And what we have with these shock cords all the way around the bottom of the boat blind, that will take up any of that extra slack that you may have. Now, if you choose to leave it this way, it's fine. It's not going to hinder anything or whatnot, but what it will do is in windy conditions, you're going to have a draft right here. So once you've done that, you can tighten the 4 bolts in the front and in the back. Going backwards a little bit, once you've cut this 8.5 inches and drilled a 3/8 hole a half inch up, you would do the same on the opposite side because we have the same overhang. You don't want to cut the 9 inches because then your boat blind will stick inside the boat. One of the big advantages to a Beavertail boat blind is you have full usable space to the inside of the boat. Boats are enough money. You want to be able to use all the space inside. There's nothing that's hanging over your head. There's nothing that is mounted on the inside. Everything is mounted to the outside of the boat, so you have full range of motion to the interior. And once you've completed that, if by chance you have overhang in the rear, be it very minimal, this boat here has 2 3/4 inches of overhang in the rear. Now, if this is my boat, I would leave it because that amount of overhang isn't really affecting anything for me. I don't feel that I would get much of a draft out of it. But if you wanted that tighter fit, you could go ahead and cut 2 1/4 inches off, drill a 3/8 hole, a half an inch up, and reattach it. And the blind will be specifically fit to your boat. If it's a boat blind that you're going to move from boat to boat to boat, I don't recommend cutting it or tailoring it at all. Now this is a 1600 series boat blind that we cut and shortened the outside bars to specifically fit this boat. It is the same boat that we assembled the Shadowgrass 1800 series boat blind on, but we fit it to this boat so you can see the difference. This is how you want your support bar or sidebar to rest on your gunnel after you cut it. And again, as you can see, very minimal slack in the blind material itself. Now for storing and transporting your Beavertail boat blind, as I mentioned earlier, each one of our blinds comes with a travel cover. And what you'll do is, as you can see, I laid the travel cover underneath the blind. Pull your Beavertail boat blind fabric around the corners here. Lay any excess material into the blind itself. Now, there is enough space if you have your boat blind grassed up that this cover is adjustable with 6 inches. And there's already room in there to take up any grasses that you may use. So once I pull the fabric from around the corners, I normally start from front to back. Take my blind cover, match it with the clip, cinch it tight. And all I do is rotate the blind travel cover over and around. And you can see now the seam is on the bottom side. Now if you're going to travel long distances, as I referred to, the travel strap comes included in the Beavertail boat blind. It also comes equipped with 4 self-tapping screws. If you're ever going to take the boat blind off, I recommend not using the self-tapping screws, because if you have a narrower front like this boat, you're going to end up screwing in through the support bar clamp, and every time you want to take the boat blind off, you'll have to take this screw out. What we do with these straps, cinch them through, so traveling long distances, you won't have a tendency to have the blind flare up in a wind, crosswind, or whatnot. Locks it in place. And one for the front and one for the rear. Just remember, you're going to use your duck boat for fishing as well in the summertime. These boat blinds can be taken off just like it sits here. You can remove them from the boat, hang them on the garage wall, hang them from the trusses in the garage, wherever, hang them on the side of a shed. Fully removable, pops on, pops off.